Hello everybody! Hello! What's my favorite trick? I get asked that a lot. What's up everybody, Shaun Murray here, and I want to talk to you about that question. What's your favorite trick? Honestly, my answer when people ask me that, the ones that I land. Now of course there's some tricks that are like more fun because of how they feel or it's a big accomplishment. But if I were to go and say like over all the years, the ones that when I make this trick, I'm like, that feels pretty cool. And that's what we're going for. It's just like some fun, enjoyable feelings. Most of the time. Some it's because it's like, man, I want to try something new or overcome fears or fly through the air, whatever it may be. Of course, the Rayleigh is really fun for me. And that one feels like I'm flying more than anything. One that I just feel like it applies at any occasion, off of anything, is a backside 180. But it can even be an Ollie backside 180 or a power slide backside 180, wake to wake, into the flats, whatever it may be. Just spinning away from the direction of travel is one of the coolest feelings for me. So first, let's talk about the definition of what a backside 180 is. So anytime that you are traveling, let's say left foot forward, and your body is open to the direction of travel for the first 180, any spin from then on is going to be called a front side something, whether it's just a half a rotation or a 360, 540, all the way up to like a 1440, it's gonna be a front side something. So front side 180, front side 3, front side 5. Front side does not have to do with your approach, but your spin. You have a heel side approach or a toe side approach, and then what direction are you spinning for your spin tricks? So front side spins are when you go open to the direction of travel, and backside spins are when your back goes to the direction of travel. Cool thing is this applies in snowboarding, skateboarding, surfing, most of the board sports. You're going to be able to apply these things, so helping you sound pretty cool. I had to learn at some point, so trying to get you guys situated. So what we're going to talk about right now is the backside 180 and how to take this trick from being relatively scary for most people to something that's actually pretty fun. There's gonna be some steps in between going from not being able to do it to being able to do it, and giving yourself the mental confidence to go about those things. Now sure, you can say, all right, let's just go wake to wake, but there's probably about 6 or 7 steps that I'm gonna take you guys through that really are going to allow you to take small steps and expand your confidence, so that when we say let's go wake to wake, you've got a lot more confidence going into that. So I keep saying confidence a lot. In all honesty, if you think about it, riding is way more mental than physical. So we're gonna really work on expanding that mental side of riding. First thing you're gonna do is you can have the boat slow down to about 12 miles per hour. Kids can go even slower, but most adults 12 and a half miles an hour. And all of these steps at first are gonna be straight behind the boat. What you're going to do is you can even take your fins off at first, as you're gonna learn how to do the power slide. This is all going to be done in between the wakes. You're going to cut over to the right wake for a left foot forward rider. Begin cutting on a pretty mellow edge. As you get to about the middle of the wakes, you're going to take your back hand off the handle, and you're going to take your back foot and kick it out in the direction that you are just cutting. Probably one of the most important things is to make sure you're always leaning against the line. When you're cutting, you're going to be leaning back with your shoulders over the water. But as you begin to cut and transition into that power slide, you're gonna make sure that you are no longer leaning back, because if you're leaning back, you will catch your back edge going at the boat. You don't wanna do that, but that's the nice thing about going slow right now. So you're gonna take your backhand off, you're gonna take your back foot. I tell people, think about kicking out in the direction you were just cutting, like a donkey kick. If you wanna make the sound, hee-haw, you can even do that. Kick that back foot out, and that is what causes those fins to release. Like I said, you can take your fins off at first and it'll make this transition a lot easier, but it's really important that your toes are the only thing that are scraping along the water with your heels up high. Also, keep the handle very still. You don't need to change much in your upper body. Your eyes can continue looking forward and only hold the slide for a very short amount of time and then stop. Practice this a bunch of times till you really feel how you can release those fins, slide on your toes, and have your chest be exposed to the water as opposed to your back leaning at the boat. Now the next step, either do the power slide outside the wakes, pretty far from the wake, but if you're gonna do that, you're gonna wanna bump the speed up to about 15 or 16 miles an hour. This is where it becomes really important that you're not leaning into the direction of travel. Rather, kick that board out from underneath you by taking that back foot, doing the donkey kick, and make sure that you are only on your toes and not sliding flat on the board. Now going back in between the wakes, keeping the speed around 12 miles per hour. Do the power slide, but now is where you're going to continue your rotation, spinning all the way around. You'll be surprised that it doesn't take much effort to get all the way around because that momentum will just carry you. Turn your handle hand upside down, knuckles up to the sky, and that will rotate your shoulders more, allowing the handle pass to happen. There's a couple different ways to pass the handle, which we'll talk about later in this video. One thing that's really important, I use this technique for people working on spins of any direction, is you want to think about being in a cylinder that's always slightly leaning away from the boat. The reason for this is so that you don't stand up too much or lean at the boat and catch a heel or back edge at any time. You should always be leaning slightly against the line. So keep yourself inside that cylinder as you're spinning around. Don't think of this trick as like a start and a finish. You're riding the entire time around. As you pass the handle, make sure that you are leaning against the line, being ready to ride switch. Most of the time as you finish this, your front foot is going to want to get back around, meaning your dominant foot is going to want to get back into the front. That's okay, but eventually you're going to want to be able to lock into switch on this. When you finish this, keep the handle still, keep your hips up against the handle, and be ready for tension to come back into the rope. Next step is to take this to your power slide outside the wake for the power slide backside 180 out in the flats. Same technique here, but this is where you want to make sure that you're really sliding on your toes, not flatboard too much, and don't put yourself at risk of catching that edge. Yes, you can keep your fins off of the stage if it makes you feel a lot better about doing this mentally. Same technique. Cut out, keep the handle very still as you transition to one hand. Take your back foot, kick it into the direction that you were just cutting. Slide on your toes, leaning against the line. Turn that handle upside down, look over your back shoulder, and feel the handle pass. You don't have to do a handle pass, you can ride blind, but be careful, it's probably gonna want to unwind you because it's not the easiest thing to do riding blind without getting unwrapped. Continue practicing this as much as you can. And it's honestly something that you'll continue to do even after you've learned the wake-to-wake backside 180. It's a fun trick to do. I still do it. The Ollie backside 180. It's probably one of the most fun steps of doing all of these drills, but it can also be probably something scary if you've tried it or haven't tried it for these two reasons. Number one, you feel like the rope going behind your back is going to yank your arm and maybe hurt your shoulder. Number two, you don't really know what to look at. So you feel like you're gonna have your arm yanked out and don't know where you're going. So there's two things that you can do to really change how you feel about those. Number one, know that the harder that you cut out, the more you're going to get away from line tension. So it's less likely that that arm is really going to have much pull on it as you're doing the trick. So it's important that you take a pretty aggressive cut out to swing yourself out pretty far next to the boat. So that addresses the line tension. The next thing is to address what are you actually looking at? And rather than looking at the horizon or keeping your head up, I'm going to tell you something that sounds a little bit strange. You're actually going to look down. So as you're cutting out, pick a spot out in the water and keep looking at that. That is what you're going to ollie over. As you're ollieing over that spot, keep your eyes looking down at that spot. This gives you awareness of not only what direction you're going, but when are you going to have impact on the water. This is really important as you move on to the next steps where you start coming down with some more impact. Important keys to when you're doing the Ollie backside 180. Number one, practice your ollies. Make sure that you're getting a good push off the tail, getting that board to go deep into the water, creating good pop-up into the air. If you don't have that, don't move on to this next step. Make sure that you're waiting for the board to come off the tail squarely and then begin your rotation. From that point, it's very similar to the power slide backside 180, but you want to try to spin a little bit quicker. Keep your hips moving quickly through the trick. When you land, be very gentle. This definitely helps with the line tension, and we're gonna continue talking about that moving on to the next step. Next step, go back in between the wakes and have the speed about 14 or 15 miles per hour for inside out, backside 180. That means you're starting inside the wakes, cutting out, going over the wake, and doing the trick as you're going over it, landing outside the wake. This is going to allow you to really work on your timing and also get a feel for what it feels like to land on the downside of the wake. When you are landing this, really be conscious about how you are landing and think about absorbing the landing as much as possible. That's going to make the line tension a lot easier as you're finishing this. If you want to just ditch the handle and not hang on as you're doing this for the first few times, go for it. I realize that this is kind of a scary trick, but this is where your eyes are really going to start. We'll wait for that. Hopefully that wasn't somebody falling on a backside 180 because they didn't do the drill. It's long. All right, this is where your eyes are really going to start picking out something to look at, and it's going to change how you feel about the backside 180s. I've heard people say, look at the shoreline or keep your head up looking. What you're gonna be looking down at on this inside out backside 180 is you're going to look at the whitewash that you're cutting towards. You're going to do your Ollie over that whitewash, but you're gonna keep your eyes looking at that. That is going to allow you to see where you are, where you're going, and where you're going to land. Okay, so this really allows the timing to start happening in your legs so that when you land, you can go really soft and gentle on your legs, and that allows that landing just to become something that isn't happening when you don't expect it to. So you're gonna know the direction you're going and when it's gonna happen. So yes, you're going to look down at the whitewash and watch it as you're spinning, and you're gonna watch it go away. This is gonna be the same thing you do when you go wake to wake. You're gonna be up in the air, look at the top of the second wake, keep your eyes on it, land, watch it go away. This is when it becomes actually something you go, oh, this feels way better than it did before if you tried them before, because you actually know what's happening. I can't stress enough how important it is to really work on what you are looking at. If you don't find yourself being able to stare at that landing and really be able to focus on something, don't move on to the next step. This is one of the most important things that you can learn at this point. Next step is going from the outside of the wakes in for a one wake backside 180. This allows you to learn what the takeoff feels like. And honestly, the landing in between the wakes is gonna be a little bit harder than going wake to wake. It's just not as scary. So only go out a few feet, just enough to get up into the air and allow yourself to work on the same techniques. Keeping the handle still. Spot what you're going over. Watch that landing go away. Soft knees. Lean against the line. Wake to wake backside 180. It's probably what a lot of you guys are waiting for, but not everybody's gonna do this. Maybe because it's a little bit nervous. If you've taken all of the steps so far, this really shouldn't be too big of a step. You've learned the takeoff, you've learned the landing, you've learned how to look at things differently, literally with your eyes. At this point, you feel like that may be a big step. So something you can do to help take some of those fears away. Bring in the rope shorter, like really short, 45, 50 feet, and slow the boat down as slow as you can to still have somewhat of a clean wake so you have a decent takeoff, but then it's not going to be really that far of a jump. Couple things to think about when you are doing this. Number one, a wake jump is your foundation. So make sure that as you're cutting into the wake, use a good wake jump going off the wake. Don't spin too early. To make sure you're going off the wake and being patient, feel the tail leave the wake and get entirely off the wake before you begin your spin. Once you get into the air, two things you can think about. Number one, keep the handle still. Number two, look for that landing, the top of the second wake. The same place that you were looking when you're doing the inside out drills is now going to come back into play. That is your landing. So spot that, keep your eyes on it. Watch it go underneath you, and as you begin to rotate, continue looking at it. When you land, a couple different things. One, keep looking at that landing, watch it go away. Number two, keep your knees really soft on landing. Now, I know that sounds like there's a lot happening, but these are all things that you've practiced so far. So try to pick one or two things you're gonna think about and focus on those. If you shortened up your rope to do this, and you start getting more confident landing it, let your rope out, speed up a little bit. Let your rope out a couple feet, speed up a little bit. and just inch your way back to your normal riding length. Every time you make any kind of change in those variables, starting from the power slide behind the boat, going all the way up to the wake steps, there's a lot of steps that happen in between, but anytime you go from one step to the next, make sure that you're feeling confident before you move on to the next step. Like I said, this is one of my favorite tricks to do, whether it's off a roller, going off a double up into the flats, wake to wake, sliding around, whatever it may be. The backside 180 is something that I encourage you to add to your bag of tricks. I appreciate you guys watching, and honestly really appreciate it when you guys go and try these things if you're at that level. And I think a lot of people can really do this if you take the time. And if you have a good experience doing it, awesome. If it's not great, either way, in the questions and comments, do that below. I like reading those and getting good feedback or helping you guys out through the process. So I do appreciate your time checking this out, and I enjoy making these videos. So put your questions and comments below. If you haven't subscribed, do that. Also hit the little alert, the notification bell. That side. Anyway, hit the notification bell and you guys will know when I put out new videos. Tell your friends or something like that. But either way, enjoy your ride. Peace! I hope I remembered everything. Here's my notes. Oh, so the different ways that you can pass the handle. And there's different ways you can practice passing the handle. You can honestly just do it standing on land. That's where most people are gonna do it. Or if you have the ability to ride behind the boat and grab the handle behind your back, you can see that you can either go what I call knuckles up or palm to palm. If you can get yourself to pass palm to palm, that's going to really pay off in the future. When I really want to pass the handle quickly, when I go palm to palm behind and in front of me, that's when I can have the big spins happen. I'll do another video on how to pass the handle, but here's a quick tip on how to do that. Cut outside the wake, lean away from the line. If you find yourself not being able to pull it in, it's because it's gonna be much harder to pull it in. Rather, lean your shoulders away and you'll feel your hips scoot closer to the handle. See if you can grab it, knuckles up, and then change your grip to palm to palm. I encourage you to do the palm to palm pass because it's really gonna pay off later in your riding. I'll do another video on the handle pass at a later date. Soft knee.